Hello, Troy Martenson here with Remax Results, and today we're joined by John Alexander at Eagle Brook Church in Lino Lakes. Well, hey, John.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, really good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Of course.
Give us just a quick introduction.
Yep.
You know, how you guys came to Minnesota.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You and your family.
Well, first of all, I'm a pastor here at Eagle Brook Church.
Okay.
And serve on the leadership team, but I actually grew up in the state of Washington, so go Seahawks.
Yeah.
I've adopted Minnesota sports as my second, okay?
Okay.
And I'm trying to get on board with Vikings. But I grew up in the state of Washington, and long story short, I married a Minnesota girl. Mm-hmm. And so,
well, that'll do it.
As you know, Minnesota girls, they don't leave Minnesota.
No.
So we're here to stay.
They don't.
And we've been married 11 years, a couple kids, and
Congratulations.
we love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yep.
Well, one question I always like to ask people, especially when it comes to something like this. So if I were new to the area and I was kind of re-exploring my faith or maybe looking around for a new home church, what would be something I would look for, or what do you think would be a good way to go about that?
Yeah, that would be that's great that people are looking for that at all. I mean, in
Absolutely.
today's day and age, they go on the internet.
Yeah.
And so you can find a lot of information.
Right.
Actually on Google,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Maybe too much information.
Yeah, too much information. And read people's experience and reviews and things like that. But more than anything, ask your neighbors, talk to people who've been here for
Sure.
a while. But then when you're actually looking for that church, look for a place that welcomes new people really well.
Sure.
So evaluate your experience
Sure.
based on how you're treated, how you're greeted, you know, what it's like to step foot into those doors for the very first time. And we're not a perfect church, but we
Sure.
do our very best to welcome people who haven't been in church for a really long time or haven't ever been into our church.
Right.
And so we'll make sure that you feel welcome if you come here.
Awesome. Well, what are some of the biggest concerns people have when they do come here? Like sometimes you get some of the same questions or the same concerns. What do you see sometimes with
I think
things like that?
most people have a church or religious background.
Sure.
So they're comparing it
An
to
idea.
An idea.
Yeah.
Some of it's good, and if we're honest, some of it's not really
So
good.
great.
So
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And so whatever denomination or church experience you had, I think people are often comparing it to that or thinking it's going to be like that.
Sure.
And therefore, I don't want to be a part of it, or I want it to be like that. So I think you do your very best to set aside whatever's happened in the past, although valid, and take that step and walk through the doors. Now, when they hear about Eagle Brook is a big church.
It is,
and
yeah.
so it can be intimidating,
You
and
bet.
that's fair to step foot into a big place, and it can be loud, and there's a lot of people. The parking lot's full. It takes a while to get out of the parking lot, as you know.
I know that.
And so I think it's that's a lot to overcome for people.
Sure.
But again,
Do you recommend like a small group or maybe like getting to know people on a more intimate level
Yeah,
so that
absolutely.
you can kind of take that big feel away?
Absolutely. I think that's a key part of our church is getting to know a small group of people, and
Sure.
we've got lots of opportunities for people to do that.
Sure.
But I think more than anything, don't feel bad about coming into our church and sitting in the very back and taking it in and taking your time. We say that all the time, take your time.
Sure.
And make sure it's a good fit for you and that God's actually going to speak to you while you're here at this church.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Well, I've seen you speak many, many times, and you do an awesome job.
Thanks.
And I've always wondered, the messages and things that are being put together, is that something you get to choose? Is it kind of a collaborative thing, or do they kind of just give it to you and
Good
go run
question.
with it?
Good
or?
question.
Yeah.
Once a year,
Okay.
Bob is our senior pastor,
Yep.
Jason's our teaching pastor,
Sure.
and then one other guy and myself. We get away for a couple of days
Okay.
at a cabin and basically plan the entire year. And by the time we leave those couple days, seeking after what God wants, what we think people need to hear, we have a pretty good plan.
Okay.
But as we get closer to those messages, we are given a lot of freedom to write within kind of a very loose framework of what we're going to talk about. So
Sure.
I'm working on a message right now. No one has told me what I need to say exactly. No
Sure.
one tells me what the points are. I kind of have an idea of a direction I'm going to go. And
Yeah.
then all of us, we all do this for each other. We write the message, and then we hand it over to each other to read and
To
review,
critique and review.
critique
Oh,
before we
man.
actually give it. We want to make sure a lot of people see it.
Yeah.
And it's the very best we can possibly give. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you? I've always wondered, because you always bring great verses in, and you know, do you sometimes go, oh, this kind of relates to this verse in the Bible, or someone else will bring that in?
It's usually the writer. It's
Okay.
usually the person. So
Okay,
our job is to be pastors and know the Bible. So we're often, inundated with verses that maybe apply to this
Sure.
situation or this topic, and so it's often our own doing.
Good.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the way Eagle Brook does their worship is make it very relevant. So that's what kind of drew me and my family in, is today's, kind of bring it to today's problems or issues or things that we deal with.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
good.
Yep.
That's good. Well, one big thing here at Eagle Brook is the music is just so awesome, and the production and everything they do here. And one question I always wonder about is, what's so important about making that so spectacular, so produced, and just really a good quality, show. Really.
Yeah. Well, we believe excellence honors God.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the only way to honor God. We honor God with our character, what's happening inside of us. But when we bring our very best, we think it's honoring to God, who is the most creative person in history, in existence. And so we bring our very best, our creative self. Now, we can't ever compete with what's happening in the Excel Center, Target Center for concerts and things like that. We're not trying to.
Sure.
We want to create an experience so people feel comfortable enough to engage. That's the key.
Right.
So if it sounds good, if it looks good, if it feels good, again, we don't want to detract from people's worship of God.
Right.
We want to help propel that forward.
Right.
And we want to inspire people to engage. And we think if we bring our very best in those areas, that helps people.
Absolutely.
So,
well, like you say, helping people engage.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly the goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, there's hundreds of churches in the Twin Cities area, and just kind of curious what your thoughts are. What kind of makes Eagle Brook different from some of these other churches?
Yeah, that's a good question.
They all honor God.
Yeah.
Or most do, you know.
Yeah.
And we hope they do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just kind of curious what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I would say this first. We're on the same team with churches.
Right.
In fact, we have a ministry that's completely free ministry for churches across the Twin Cities and the country and even internationally, where we help train and support other churches.
Sure.
Because we're just on the same team.
Right.
Because if the church down the street gets better, we all get
We
better.
all get better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what makes us a little different is that we are hyper focused on people who haven't been to church in a long time, who've never been to church, or who are really broken and far from God.
Yeah.
And there are some churches like that, certainly, but we are hyper focused on doing whatever it
Reaching
takes
those people.
to reach people who are in a place where they desperately need God.
Sure.
And again, we're not perfect, but we are definitely unique in that regard. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, what is one of the main challenges you think that you've had to overcome by being here at Eagle Brook and being a pastor overall?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're faced with a lot of challenging things.
Yeah.
People come to you for help.
Yeah.
A lot of times at their darkest hour.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious what one of your most challenging things is that you've been able to overcome over time.
I think the biggest is having wisdom to speak into a person's situation in life, because people bring problems to you that are really significant and personal and painful. Affairs and marriages that are on the cusp of divorce and addiction, and they often are turning somewhere for help when they're reaching out for help, and one of those places can be the church or a pastor.
Sure.
And that's a difficult spot to be, because I can't save that person.
Right.
I can do my very best to point them in the right direction and get them the help they need, and ultimately point them to Jesus. But that's a lot of pressure, and that requires a lot of wisdom, and it requires knowing, how to say the right thing, when to say the right thing, when to
talk,
speak.
when not.
Yes, exactly. So I just think that's an ongoing challenge that I experience here at this church, and being a pastor. So,
you bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Well, if people want to learn more about Eagle Brook Church, is there somewhere online they can go?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We stream our services on Sunday morning, and you might see this guy up there
every now and again
playing bass. And you can do that, eaglebrookchurch.com, 9/11 on Sunday mornings, or Facebook. You can just look Eagle Brook Church, and we stream the services there. You can watch old ones too, so it's not like you have to be live.
Sure.
But I think that's the absolute best way to check out a place. We'll show you the entire service. We'll engage with you where you're at.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who do that and watch online, and we'd love for you to check it out there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I love this church.
yeah.
Thank
love
you
too.
so
Thanks,
much.
Troy.
Yeah,
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.